had my entire company if you beat me with that piece of junk. That's what the billionaire said to the 70-year-old janitor in front of everyone. Phones came out. Cameras started rolling. Nobody knew it yet, but they were about to witness something that would be replayed millions of times online. Not because of who won the race, but because of what happened when the Lamborghini died in the middle of the road, and the old man in the rusty truck pulled up beside him and said 4 words that changed everything. Need a ride? If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever watched arrogance get what it deserves, if you've ever wondered what real strength looks like, you need to hear this story. Stay with me, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Welcome to the story room. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Section 1. The Challenge 1000 Words. You know, sometimes life has a way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. This is one of those stories. A story about pride, humility, and how the smallest moment can change everything. It happened in downtown Chicago, right outside the headquarters of Sterling Media Group. If you don't know the name, just picture one of those massive glass buildings where important people make important decisions. The kind of place where everyone walks fast and talks faster. The man who owned it all was named Victor Sterling, real estate mogul turned media tycoon. The kind of man who wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He drove a bright yellow Lamborghini that he parked right at the front entrance every single day. Not because it was his assigned spot, but because he owned the building and he could do whatever he wanted. That particular Thursday afternoon, something unusual happened. Victor pulled into the lot with his usual confidence, ready to impress a group of potential investors he was bringing in for a tour. But when he got to his favorite spot, right there by the main entrance, he found it occupied. And not by just any car. It was an old pickup truck. A 1965 Ford, faded blue paint, rust spots crawling up the sides like it had survived a war. The kind of vehicle that looked like it belonged on a farm somewhere, not in the parking lot of a billion-dollar company. Victor stopped walking. His guests stopped beside him. One of them chuckled nervously and said, "Well, that's quite a contrast." The air felt thick that day. Hot. The kind of summer heat that makes your shirt stick to your back. Victor loosened his tie and stared at the truck like it had personally insulted him. That's when he saw the owner. An older man, probably in his 70s, was walking toward the truck with slow, deliberate steps. His name was Samuel Brooks, though most people just called him Sam. He worked as a maintenance worker for the building. Cleaned the floors, fixed the leaks, made sure the lights stayed on. The kind of job people don't notice until something breaks. Sam wore faded work pants and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up. His hands were rough, calloused from years of hard work. He carried a small toolbox in one hand and his truck keys in the other. Victor called out to him, "Excuse me, you parked in my spot." Sam looked up, a little confused at first. Then he glanced around the lot. All the other spaces were taken. Figured one spot's as good as another. A few employees had started to gather, sensing something was about to happen. You know how it is. People can smell drama from a mile away. Victor stepped closer, his voice getting louder. "Do you know who I am?" Sam adjusted the toolbox in his hand. "Yeah, you're the boss." "That's right," Victor said, his voice dripping with arrogance. "And that truck of yours, that piece of junk, is sitting exactly where my car belongs." One of the investors whispered something to another. Phones started coming out. People began recording. Sam stayed calm. He didn't raise his voice, didn't get defensive. He just stood there, quiet and steady, like a tree that had weathered too many storms to be shaken by one more. That calmness made Victor even angrier. He walked right up to the old truck and tapped the hood with his knuckle. "Tell you what, old man. Since you think this rust bucket deserves to be here, let's make it interesting." The crowd leaned in. Victor smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "Race me. Right now. If that antique beats my Lamborghini, I'll hand you the keys to this entire company." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "He's not serious." Another voice said, "Oh, he's serious." Sam looked at Victor for a long moment. Then he looked at his truck. His fingers drummed lightly against the toolbox, a quiet rhythm only he could hear. "You really want to race over a parking spot?" Sam asked. "No," Victor said, louder now, playing to the crowd. "I want to show everyone here what real power looks like, what success looks like." He gestured toward his Lamborghini, like it was a trophy. "Your call, old man." Sam took a slow breath. He looked tired, not from fear, but from the weight of watching another man make a fool of himself. "You're sure about this?" Sam asked. Victor spread his arms wide. "Absolutely." Sam gave a small nod. "All right then." The murmurs grew louder. Phones lifted higher. The hot summer air seemed to press down on everyone, thick with anticipation. And just like that, the race that no one saw coming was about to begin. A race that would teach everyone watching a lesson they'd never forget. Because sometimes the loudest voices aren't the strongest ones. And sometimes the oldest trucks run longer than the flashiest cars. Word spread through the building faster than wildfire. Within minutes, it felt like half the company had poured out into the parking lot. People from accounting, marketing, the mailroom, even executives who normally stayed glued to their desks. Everyone wanted to see what was about to happen. They gathered in clusters, whispering, laughing, pointing at the two vehicles. The contrast was almost comical. Victor's bright yellow Lamborghini, sleek and aggressive, sitting next to Sam's beat-up Ford truck that looked like it had been through 3 lifetimes. Victor soaked up the attention like sunshine. He strutted around his car, running his hand along the hood, making sure every camera caught the shine. 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, he announced to his investors. Italian engineering at its finest. One of them nodded appreciatively. "Impressive machine." Victor grinned. "It's not just a machine. It's a statement." Meanwhile, Sam opened the hood of his truck. The hinges creaked, protesting from age. A faint smell of oil and old gasoline drifted out. He didn't make a show of it. He just checked a few things quietly, tightened a belt, jiggled a wire, wiped some dust off the battery with his sleeve. His movements were slow, methodical, like a man who had done this same routine 1,000 times and knew every inch of that engine by heart. Someone in the crowd laughed. "Grandpa's checking if it'll even start." Another person snickered. "This is going to be painful to watch." Sam didn't react. He just closed the hood gently, almost lovingly, and walked around to the driver's side. He paused for a moment, looking at the faded paint on the door. His fingers traced a small dent near the handle, a dent that probably had a story behind it. Victor climbed into his Lamborghini and fired up the engine. The sound exploded across the parking lot, a deep, roaring growl that made people jump. It was loud, aggressive, demanding attention. The kind of sound that said, "Look at me, fear me, respect me." The crowd cheered. A few people clapped. Victor revved the engine again, louder this time, grinning through the windshield. Sam slid into his truck and turned the key. The engine coughed once, then settled into a soft, uneven rumble. It wasn't loud. It wasn't impressive. It just worked. Like a heartbeat. Steady. Reliable. More laughter from the crowd. "Man, this is embarrassing." A woman near the front said to her coworker, "I almost feel bad for him. But if you looked closely, really closely, you'd notice something." Sam wasn't nervous. His hands weren't shaking. His jaw wasn't tight. He just sat there, one hand on the wheel, breathing slow and even like he was about to drive to the grocery store. The route they chose was simple. Straight down the side parking lot, around the back of the building, and back to the front entrance. Maybe half a mile total. Nothing fancy. Just speed and skill. A supervisor stepped forward to organize things. She raised her hand, trying to bring some order to the chaos. "All right, everyone back up. Give them space." People shuffled back reluctantly, still filming, still whispering. Victor rolled down his window. "Hope that thing doesn't fall apart before we even start," he shouted toward Sam. Sam didn't respond. He just gripped the steering wheel a little tighter and stared straight ahead at the empty road in front of him. The supervisor looked at both drivers. "On my count. 3, 2, 1, go." Victor slammed the gas pedal. The Lamborghini shot forward like a rocket, tires screeching against the pavement, leaving black marks in its wake. The sound was deafening. The car seemed to blur as it tore down the lot, disappearing around the first corner in seconds. The crowd erupted, cheering, shouting, laughing. Sam pulled away from the line slowly. No screech. No drama. Just a gentle roll forward, the truck's engine humming its old, familiar tune. People doubled over laughing. He's not even trying. Look at him. He's going like 20 miles an hour. This is the saddest thing I've ever seen. But here's the thing. If you watch Sam's face, really watched it, you'd see something different.
Focus. Calm.
The kind of expression a man wears when he knows something no one else does. The crowd chased after the two vehicles, running along the sidewalk, phones raised high, trying to capture every angle. Everyone assumed the same thing. This was going to be over in seconds. A total blowout. A humiliation. What they didn't know, what none of them could have guessed, was that the race had only just begun. And sometimes, the fastest start doesn't mean the best finish. Sam's truck rolled steadily down the lot, the engine chugging along like it had all the time in the world. The sun beat down on the metal roof. His hands stayed loose on the wheel. His eyes stayed focused on the road ahead. He wasn't racing to win. He was racing to finish. And that, as it turned out, would make all the difference. Victor's Lamborghini flew down the straightaway like it was born to do exactly this. The engine screamed, the wind whipped past, and for a moment, Victor felt invincible. This was his world, his rules,
His victory.
he could already picture it. The crowd cheering, the investors impressed, the old man humiliated. Another story to tell at cocktail parties. Another reminder that he was at the top and everyone else was below. But then, halfway down the back stretch, something changed.
A sound.
A wrong sound. The engine sputtered. Just once at first. Victor frowned and pressed the gas harder. The car jerked forward, then hesitated.
Like it was choking on something.
Come on, Victor muttered. Not now. Another sputter. Louder this time. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Warning lights everywhere. Oil pressure. Engine temperature. Battery. Victor's heart started pounding. He slammed the gas pedal again, desperate. The Lamborghini surged forward one more time. Then the engine coughed hard, shuddered violently, and died. Complete silence. The car rolled to a stop right there in the middle of the lot. No roar. No power. Just dead weight on four wheels. Victor sat there, frozen, staring at the dashboard in disbelief. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tight his knuckles turned white.
No.
No, 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 no. He turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. Still nothing. Behind him, in the distance, he heard it. The soft, steady hum of an old truck engine. Getting closer. He looked in the rearview mirror and saw Sam's Ford rolling toward him. Not fast. Not slow. Just steady. Like it had been doing this forever and would keep doing it long after today. The crowd, running to catch up, started to realize what was happening. The laughter died down. Confusion spread across faces. Wait, is his car broken? No way. That can't be real. The Lamborghini just stopped? Sam's truck pulled up beside the stalled Lamborghini. Sam leaned out the window, his face calm, his voice gentle. Need some help. Victor's jaw clenched. His pride screamed at him to say no, to push the car himself if he had to. But the cameras were rolling. The investors were watching. And deep down, he knew he had no other choice. You can't be serious, Victor said, his voice hollow. Sam reached over and unlocked the passenger door. The click echoed in the silence. Race isn't over yet. You want to finish or not? The crowd caught up, surrounding the scene. Phones pointed at Victor from every angle. He could see it in their eyes. The shock. The disbelief. Some people looked almost sorry for him. Others looked like they were trying not to smile. One of the investors stepped forward. Victor, what's going on? Victor didn't answer. He just sat there, his world collapsing around him. Sam waited patiently. No judgment in his eyes. No gloating. Just an open door and a quiet invitation. Finally, Victor opened his door and stepped out. His legs felt weak. He walked around to the passenger side of the old truck and climbed in, lowering himself onto the cracked vinyl seat. It smelled like old leather and motor oil. Nothing like the luxury he was used to. Sam put the truck in gear and started rolling forward again.
Slow. Steady.
The same pace as before. The crowd followed in stunned silence. No one knew what to say. The man who owned everything, sitting passenger in the vehicle he'd mocked minutes earlier. Inside the truck, neither of them spoke. The engine hummed. The road stretched out ahead. Victor stared out the window, his reflection staring back at him in the glass. He looked smaller somehow. Less sure. Sam kept his eyes on the road. His hands rested lightly on the wheel, guiding the truck with the ease of someone who had driven this route 1,000,000 times in his mind. The silence between them was heavy, but not hostile. It was the kind of silence that happens when words aren't enough, when a moment speaks louder than anything either of them could say. They rounded the back of the building, past the loading dock, turned toward the front entrance. And there, in the distance, Victor could see the finish line. The crowd gathering, the phones waiting. His stomach twisted. Every second in that truck felt like an eternity. Every bump in the road reminded him of how far he'd fallen in just a few minutes. But here's what he didn't expect. Sam's truck didn't break down, didn't stall, didn't fail. It just kept going. Reliable, dependable, doing exactly what it was built to do. And for the first time in a long time, Victor understood something. Real strength isn't about being the loudest or the fastest. It's about being steady when everything else falls apart. The truck rolled closer to the finish line. The crowd grew larger. And Victor realized, sitting in that passenger seat, that he was about to face the consequences of his own arrogance. Not because Sam wanted revenge, but because the truth has a way of catching up to all of us, whether we're ready for it or not. The old Ford truck crossed the finish line without ceremony. No fanfare. No celebration. Just a quiet rumble and a gentle stop. Sam put the truck in park and turned off the engine. For a moment, everything was still. The crowd stood frozen, unsure how to react. This wasn't how anyone thought this would end. Then the passenger door opened. Victor stepped out slowly. His expensive shoes hit the pavement with a soft thud. His face was pale, drained of the confidence that had filled it just 20 minutes earlier. His tie was loosened. His hair, normally perfect, looked disheveled. Every phone in the crowd turned toward him. Cameras clicked. Videos rolled. People whispered behind their hands. He actually rode with him. Can you believe this? This is insane. Victor tried to find words. He opened his mouth, closed it again. His hands trembled slightly as he smoothed down his jacket, a nervous habit he couldn't control. Sam got out on the driver's side. He moved slowly, stretching his back like he'd just finished a regular day's work. He didn't smile, didn't gloat, didn't say a word. He just stood there beside his truck, letting the moment breathe. One of the investors stepped forward, his face tight with concern. "Victor, we need to talk."
Now.
Another investor shook his head. "This is going to be all over the internet in minutes." Victor finally found his voice. "Listen, everyone, there was a mechanical failure. The car." A young employee interrupted, his voice respectful but firm. "You said if he won, he could have the company."
We all heard you say it.
Several people nodded. Murmurs of agreement spread through the crowd. Victor's face flushed red. "I didn't mean it was just..." But the words died in his throat. What could he say? That he was joking? That he didn't think it was possible to lose? That he never imagined being humiliated in front of everyone who worked for him? The truth was written all over his face, and everyone could see it. That's when Sam finally spoke. He stepped forward, wiping his hands on a rag he'd pulled from his pocket. His voice was calm, measured, carrying across the silent crowd. "I didn't race for your company, Mr. Sterling." People leaned in to hear better. Sam continued, looking Victor straight in the eye. "I raced because you asked me to, because you made a challenge, and I figured I'd see it through. But I don't want your business. I don't want your money. I just wanted to finish what you started. A wave of surprise rippled through the crowd. Someone whispered, "He's letting him off the hook." Another person said quietly, That's really decent of him." Victor blinked, processing Sam's words. Relief flickered across his face for just a moment. But the embarrassment remained, heavy and undeniable. One of the senior board members pushed through the crowd. Her name was Patricia Caldwell, and she'd been with Sterling Media Group since before Victor even took over. Her expression was stern, disappointed. "Victor," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Your behavior today was completely unacceptable." Victor turned to face her. "Patricia, She held up a hand. "You mocked an employee in front of investors and staff. You created a public spectacle. You gambled with this company's reputation on camera." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "We cannot ignore this." Other board members nodded in agreement. The investors exchanged uncomfortable glances. This was bad for business, and everyone knew it. Victor looked around desperately, searching for support, for an ally, for anyone who might defend him. But all he saw were disappointed faces and recording phones. Sam took a small step back, giving Victor space. He didn't need to say anything else. His point was made, his dignity intact. Patricia continued, "The board will be meeting first thing tomorrow morning to discuss appropriate action. Until then, I suggest you think very carefully about the example you're setting as the leader of this company." The crowd started to disperse slowly, people breaking into small groups, processing what they'd just witnessed. The story was already being shared. Messages sent. Videos uploaded. Victor stood there, alone in the middle of the parking lot, watching his world shift beneath his feet. All because of a parking spot. All because of his pride. Sam walked back to his truck. A few employees approached him, offering quiet words of respect. "That was really kind of you, Sam. You could have taken everything from him." Sam just nodded. "Wouldn't have felt right. Besides, I got everything I need already." He climbed back into his Ford, started the engine, and began to pull away. As he drove past Victor, their eyes met briefly through the window. No anger. No triumph. Just a simple acknowledgement between two men who both learned something that day. The old truck rolled out of the parking lot, its engine humming steadily into the distance. Behind it, Victor stood in the fading afternoon light, surrounded by whispers and stares, finally understanding what it felt like to lose control. And somewhere in that painful moment, a lesson was beginning to take root. A lesson about respect, humility, and the cost of treating people as less than human. Whether he'd truly learn it remained to be seen. The video went viral within hours. Not the whole race. People didn't care about the Lamborghini speeding down the lot or the technical details of what went wrong. What they cared about was the image of Victor Sterling, real estate and media mogul, sitting in the passenger seat of the truck he'd called junk. That single frame captured something people couldn't look away from. The comments poured in from everywhere. Karma in real time. That old man showed more class in 5 minutes than most people show in a lifetime. Respect isn't bought. It's earned. Within a week, the board made their decision. Victor was suspended pending a full investigation into his conduct and leadership style. They brought in consultants to interview employees, asking questions about workplace culture, respect, and whether people felt valued. The answers weren't pretty. Stories came out. Small moments that had been ignored or brushed aside. The way Victor spoke to cleaning staff. How he dismissed ideas from younger employees. The casual arrogance that had become so normal, people stopped noticing it.
But they notice now.
During that same week, something unexpected happened. Patricia Caldwell reached out to Sam personally. She asked if he'd be willing to sit down with the leadership team and share his perspective on what makes a workplace feel respectful and dignified. Sam agreed, though he was hesitant at first. "I'm just a maintenance worker," he said. "I fix things." Patricia smiled. "Maybe that's exactly what we need right now. Someone who knows how to fix things." The meeting was small. Just Sam, Patricia, and a few key board members. They sat in a conference room overlooking the city, the same room where million-dollar deals were usually made. Sam spoke simply from the heart. He talked about the importance of seeing people, really seeing them. Not just their job titles or their usefulness, but their humanity. He talked about how dignity isn't something you give to people based on what they can do for you. It's something every person deserves just by being human. I've worked a lot of jobs in my life, Sam said, his voice steady. And I can tell you, the best bosses I ever had weren't the richest or the smartest. They were the ones who looked you in the eye when they talked to you, who remembered your name, who said thank you when you did good work. Patricia took notes, nodding. That seems so simple. It is simple, Sam replied. But simple doesn't mean easy. Especially when you get to a certain level and forget what it was like before you got there. The board took his words to heart. They didn't fire Victor, but they required him to step back from daily operations for 3 months. During that time, they implemented new policies. Respect training for all leadership. Open forums where any employee could voice concerns. A commitment to treating everyone in the building, from the CEO to the newest janitor, with the same basic dignity. As for Victor himself, the suspension hit him hard. Harder than he expected. He spent the first week angry, defensive, convinced everyone was overreacting. But as the days passed and the silence of his empty office grew louder, something shifted. He started thinking about the race, about Sam's calm face, about the offer of a ride when Victor's pride had left him stranded. He thought about all the people he dismissed over the years, all the names he'd never learned, all the moments he'd chosen superiority over kindness. It was uncomfortable, facing those truths, but necessary. 2 months into his suspension, Victor did something he'd never done before. He showed up at the building early one morning, not to work, but to find Sam. He found him in the basement, fixing a leaking pipe. Sam, Victor said quietly. Sam looked up, surprised. Mr. Sterling. I wanted to. Victor hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I wanted to apologize. For that day. For how I treated you. Sam set down his wrench and stood up slowly, wiping his hands. He didn't speak right away. Just looked at Victor, measuring the sincerity in his eyes. Finally, Sam nodded. I appreciate that. I've been doing a lot of thinking, Victor continued, about what kind of leader I want to be, what kind of person I want to be. Sam's expression softened just slightly. That's good. Thinking is where change starts. They talked for a while longer, not as boss and employee, just as 2 men trying to understand each other. When Victor finally returned to work, he was different. Not perfect. Change doesn't happen overnight, but different. He learned people's names. He stopped to listen when someone spoke. He started treating his position not as proof of his superiority, but as a responsibility to serve others well. And Sam? Sam just kept doing what he'd always done. Showing up, doing good work, treating people with respect, whether they wore a suit or work boots. His old Ford truck still parked in the lot every morning. A reminder to everyone who saw it that real strength doesn't roar. It hums quietly, steady and sure, long after the flashy things break down. Because at the end of the day, the most important race isn't about who gets there first. It's about who's still running when everything else falls apart, and who's willing to offer a ride to someone who's lost their way. That's the lesson. That's the story. And it's one worth remembering.